Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. What are we going to speak about this week? Obviously, all the sound and fury that you've been hearing if you're on social media over the last 2 days starting Sunday evening. This is the spat that happened between well-known comedian Kunal Kamra and Bhavish Aggarwal, the founder, chairman, managing director of Ola Electric scooters. Now, if you're a buyer of the scooters, this is going to interest you a lot. Did you know, at least I didn't until I saw the media reports, that 80,000 customer complaints a month. Remember, 80,000 is not the total number. 80,000 a month, some days or weeks which have 5,000 to 6,000 complaints. Service centers are overwhelmed. This is not news. This has been going on since a year. In fact, almost since the scooters were launched. People are angry, people are upset, they've been dumping their scooters there for repairs. It is not being handled. And you didn't hear much about it for various reasons, which I'm going to talk about, until Kunal Kamra, very well-known comedian with 2.4 million followers, decided to take a picture of these scooters and tweet about it. Now, things are so bad that one customer even torched a showroom in Bangalore, set fire to it, believe it or not, because he was obviously tired of waiting for it to be repaired. But we live in strange times. So companies today, especially those with deep pockets like startups, even when they're in a deep, deep mess, can use their big money power to buy influence and suppress criticism. So you suppress the media with your advertising and you buy paid influencers who tell you how things are wonderful, they're buying the scooters, there's no problem, things are being taken care of. But then this whole story gets a knock when someone like Kunal Kamra tweets because he has his own following. So the response was not to come out in a sober manner and tell us what Mr. Bhavish Aggarwal plans to do about these thousands and lakhs of scooters that aren't working anymore. He replied in an arrogant, Brattish manner. And not once, he went on, in fact, to the point where someone said, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Mr. Aggarwal knows nothing about stop digging. So the furor on social media was so huge that finally the story cracked. The stock plummeted 8.3% yesterday, which is on Monday, to 90.82. So on 7th October. And don't forget that there was a reason for all this. Mr. Aggarwal probably worried that Kunal Kamra, having tagged Jago Grahat Jago and Nitin Gadkari, the minister, was going to come back to bite him, and he wanted to stop it with a series of aggressive tweets rather than a measured response. Mr. was to call Kunal Kamra a failed comedian and ascribe financial motives to his post. So when you pay people for being influencers, you assume that everybody who ever criticizes or has a comment to make is also paid. And that's what happened with Mr. Aggarwal. He also falsely boasted that he had enough programs for our customers if they face delays. Hello, Mr. Aggarwal. All those scooters lying in front of your showroom says you're a liar because obviously, you do not have enough of programs. You put together a team, but it is too late. In a matter of minutes, there was such an avalanche of customers posting photos, angry people, including consumer activists and others who responded, and there was an explosion of reactions. Now, what is the story about Ola Electric scooters? They were launched in August 2021. Two versions, Ola S1 and S1 Pro. They promised a new era of sustainable urban mobility. In fact, this scooter was supposed to be the iPhone of mobility, nothing of that sort. Even at that time, there were serious concerns because they talked big numbers. I have done a video blog about it. You can look at it. There were serious concerns about battery and charging and how it's going to happen. But the reality was far different. It was not just a battery issue. It was worse than anticipated. The scooters have been plagued with problems like frequent breakdowns, brake, suspension, motor failures, battery malfunction, of course, sometimes causing the scooter to catch fire. Customers complained that S1 Pro fell far short of the claimed battery range also. So instead of a range of 181 kilometers that was claimed, they said it hardly went 100 kilometers. Even the smart dashboard had glitches. But the biggest problem was the absence of a robust service network. You don't even have enough charging points. And when your product is bad and it needs frequent repairs, if you don't have service centers, obviously, hell will break loose. Now, Ola Electric's answer was control the narrative. The issues, in fact, reflect broader concerns that should worry us. Main among them is how they're able to control media narrative, like I said, ads as well as paid influencers. And this has happened repeatedly. It cheats people because you're fooled by what you see. You think there's a well-known influencer with millions of followers who's saying wonderful things, you buy the products. It happened with Bajus, it's happened with Paytm, it's happening over here. They get glowing coverage in mainstream media. They do sponsored posts, which do not declare it's a sponsored post, so it seems like a genuine review. And of course, there is social media posts, which say wonderful things, and it is all fake, right until there is a bonfire of consumer complaints leading to regulatory action. In Ola's case, there are two issues. Two sets of people are fooled. One is the consumers who buy the scooters. The other is the investors who invested in the stock in August when it went public and kept it high up. I mean, the stock listed on 9th August this year at 76. On the same day, it shot up to 91. It went higher, peaked at 146. I'm talking about closing on 19th August, 10 days later. And that has remained above 100 right until Kunal Kamra's missile. That is when it finally crashed 8.3%. This tells you the extent of influence that can be purchased, because it's not as though people want writing. In fact, last November 2023, a team from Reuters deep dived and did a detailed countrywide report where they posted pictures of scooters in front of showrooms, reached out to the company. So it's not as though Mr. Aggarwal had no idea about what is going on. He was fully aware. He couldn't crank it up fast enough. If you can roll out lakhs of scooters, you can surely roll out service centers at an equal speed, do the repairs, do the recalls, and correct it. Remember, people who buy electric two-wheelers are often those who need it for their work, their job, their delivery agents for Amazon, Swiggy, what have you, and they cannot do without a scooter. It cannot lie for months together blocking their money. They need it every day, or they need it to commute. There's another set of issues that we need to be concerned about, which is governance issues in a company like Ola Electric. Remember, this is now not a private startup with funded venture capitalists taking the risk. This is ordinary retail investors taking the risk from August after the companies got listed. It has a glittering board of directors. The Securities and Exchange Board of India has very precise rules about and responsibilities, fiduciary duties for the board of directors. Now, what is the governance over here? Problem is, biscuit founders and unicorns, even after they are listed, seem to have disproportionate control over the company's operations and communications. Bhavish Aggarwal's immature and scornful response to Kunal Kamra underscores this. It also highlights the absence of internal checks, failure to respond appropriately to a crisis. But remember, the crisis is an ongoing one. It didn't happen with a tweet. It also reveals a troubling lack of governance structures that would hold this brash CMD accountable to both shareholders and customers. Is the board sleeping? Glittering board. Arun Sarin used to be with Vodafone. KV Tenety, Manoj Kumar Kohli, Anand Shankar Narayan, and a Shraddha Sharma communications expert. Have they asked questions? It would be wonderful to know if the board has ever taken note of the staggering number of consumer complaints and the founder's disdainful reaction to customer issues after being called out. I reached out to Amit Tandon, founder managing director of Institutional Investor Advisory Services, which is a proxy firm which looks at governance issues, and said, what do you think? He said, newly listed companies and their founders need to understand the terms of operating in the public market space. They need to avoid immediate reaction, but rather respond in a manner that befits a listed company. With social media allowing easy access to founders and promoters, their response to public comments and complaints must be carefully thought through. Yeah, true. And the board needs to speak up if the immature founder is not doing the right thing. Now, after the consumer complaints, let's see what happens. So first, you have two sets of people, investors, consumers. Investors are lucky. They voted with their feet, stock crashed, many of them got out. Consumers don't have this benefit. You have paid for the scooter, you can't dump it. Senior advocate Murli Neelkantan reacted to this by saying in any other country, there would have been $1 million lawsuits, not to mention criminal cases in a situation like this. So founders of startups and their venture capitalist funders are very lucky that India has a slow judicial system, and the whole consumer redress mechanism simply does not work. Indian customers are stuck in it. The class action has been made deliberately unworkable. So there is very little that they can do, because any judicial redress is long, very expensive, and hardly gives the desired results, because unless you get a deterrent penalty that runs into millions, it's just not even worth the effort. In fact, the sheer number of complaints here should have woken up the Ministry of Consumer Affairs itself and led to Moto Action. And remember, Nitin Gadkari is a minister on social media. Ministry of Consumer Affairs is on social media. This company has rolled out 6.8 lakh bikes. Hundreds of them are gathering dust. This is all well known. No Moto Action at all. Instead, the government is giving huge subsidies to one model of these electric bikes. Consumer activist Abhay Datar points out that the Consumer Protection Act 2019 has enough of provisions for replacement or refund of money in situations like this. But consumers have still been left in the lurch while the company continues to promise some relief through a new service team without putting a time frame to resolve complaints. Thousands of customers have posted photos, videos, and details of their experience. The government has still not woken up. In fact, they are deploying people from the BJP IT cell to defend Bhavish Aggarwal. In fact, the Kunal Kamra, Bhavish Aggarwal spat brings home the fact that beyond the fanfare of innovation and technology-driven Indian startups and unicorns, which even the finance minister celebrated, there's a need to focus on long-term sustainability, better governance, and respect for consumer rights. This can only happen when the board of directors exerts control, the Ministry of Consumer Affairs wakes up and does something. And this is not limited to Bhavish Aggarwal or Ola Electric. It happened with Paytm, in fact, Paytm Bank, until the RBI woke up. Byju simply collapsed. The complaints are still there. People haven't got their money. Staff hasn't got back their money. You had Zilingo, high-profile, glamorous founder, went up in flames, and now this. The government needs to wake up. If the credibility of our unicorns is something that we need to sustain and boast about, and if consumers are supposed to be taken care of. If you agree, spread the word. This is about you and me. Thank you.